Welcome to the C Word, the Conservatives podcast. Today you're listening to a road trip special. I'm Jenny Mathiasson, an Objects Conservative based in Carmarthen in Wales.
And I'm Kloe Rumsey, an Objects Conservative based in Manchester in England. Hi!
Oh, last episode of the season. Is this not crazy?
I know, and at the moment it's just us.
Yeah, that's also a bit strange, isn't it?
It is now, yeah.
Yeah.
After so long, all season.
I know, right?
So we really wanted to do a big road trip special like we did when we went to the Isle of Man, and it was all fun.
It was amazing.
We had these grand plans of going to see Liz, or going to see Phedra, or even going to see Solange in Sheffield, which is like...
not that far. Not as ambitious, yeah.
Not as ambitious. But we couldn't afford to do any of that. So,
yeah, we have no money.
What we decided to do was make the most of the trips that we're all doing separately and invite you along to some of those trips.
Yeah, so it's like a deconstructed road trip where we're all going on road trips, which is, I hope, really nice for you guys to listen to.
There's definitely more variety than we would have been able to achieve.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Travel together.
Definitely. Kloe, where did you end up going?
I went to Madrid with my friend Virginia. She's from Madrid and her parents still live there. So we go and stay with her parents, and then we just go and swan about Madrid and eat food. And this time we had a really, really nice, one of our days was really, really nice. We went to some museums and saw some dancing. It was just really, really good. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds divine. I know that Phedra has a really, really cool thing coming up.
I cannot believe she did that.
Yeah.
I'm
okay,
amazed.
so you're just going to have
excited.
to wait for Phedra's because it's too amazing for us to give away what she's doing. But it's well worth listening. Heck, I'm going to put it at the end, so you have to listen all the way through because Phedra's one is amazing. Liz went to oh my god, I can't pronounce it, Rijks Museum in the Netherlands, and took her bike there.
And
it was just an absolute classic. And yeah, it's a really lovely tour. So that's definitely a really cozy one to listen to.
Where did you go?
So recently I went sort of backpacking in Sweden with my mother-in-law, which is exactly as eccentric and adorable as it sounds. She is 80. I am 37. We are quite the pair. It was really, really cute. And it was a very wholesome experience. So we went to new places that we'd never been to before. And yeah, so I recorded some bits of this when we went to historic places and that sort of thing. And at one point, I definitely lost my marbles because I was using one of those little dictaphone things that's like a handheld one. And I've recently rewatched all of Twin Peaks, which is a wonderful TV series, if you didn't know it, from the 90s. And one of the main characters does often use a dictaphone, but he always addresses his messages to Diane. So there are two messages that are addressed to a fictional Diane because I was pretending to be in Twin Peaks as I was wandering around a museum. Enjoy, everyone. That's a special treat for you guys. So you've got that to look forward to.
You're welcome.
That's just how it is. Yeah, and then we also have a special thing at the very end, which is the wonderful Cass.
Welcome back, Cass.
Yeah, thank you, Cass. We love you. Did interviews with emerging professionals at the AIC conference, which was a couple of weeks ago. And that's just ace, isn't it? So we've got all sorts of travel in this one. And people from all over the world and some fantastic accents, I'm just saying. So it's just great. It's wonderful. Do you want to pack your bags and come along, guys?
Hello. So my deconstructed road trip element is going to be a day in Madrid with Virginia. My friend we're visiting. She's from here. Today we are going to where are we going?
To the National Archaeological Museum.
Yay! Big surprise. We came here last time and we wanted to go back, obviously. Yeah, we've just walked through some very large gates. Think like British Museum, but with quite a short little walk up to the steps. But you don't go in the front doors because there's some fancy new side doors. Do you know when this was renovated? When did it have its development?
It just said over there it was 10 years ago.
Oh, 10 years ago. I mean, it's aged well.
I think it also was renovated during COVID, so 2020.
Okay. So I think we're going to be targeted in our approach because we saw quite a lot last time. I know we want to see the jewellery again. I want to see the jewellery again. What do you want to see again, V?
I want to see the Islamic collection.
Ooh, yes. And we can see how much of the writing we can read because we're both learning Arabic. Yeah. So we're going through fancy doors. God, it's so fancy. I forgot how fancy it is. Ooh, a free exhibition about the Mediterranean diet. The dates of where am I looking for the dates? Ooh, she's going to get tickets. I would like the ticket with the stone tool on it, please. Thank you. So for the extortionate price of €3, we have entry. There is a very fancy... Wait. I'm embarrassed to talk in front of the people, so we're going to wait here. There's a really nice gift shop where we both bought jewellery last year and we're going to have a little look at. And we're in a super fancy sort of auditorium entry area. There's a special exhibition that we've just picked up. A discovery booklet available in 2 languages. It's like a potted history. Oh, and there's a little map on the back.
There's a map in the back.
Oh, that's cool. And we've got a bigger map with some things to see on it. We just walked through a little entranceway with an interactive map and LCD screens.
It was about the history of Spain.
The history of Spain.
Like how it has changed, and it's like Spain. It's called Spain, an archaeological site.
Oh. Yeah. And now we are doing my favourite thing ever, a timeline starting from prehistory, as in I'm standing right next to a presumably fiberglass model of an early hominin, Homo ergaster. Okay, we've got some skulls of different types and some stone tools, and it's in 2 languages, which I appreciate, and I think Virginia appreciates because she doesn't have to translate everything. So we're almost around the first floor, and the first floor is a number of different rooms leading off from a sort of central glass-roofed atrium thing with the staircase going up to the different floors. It is amazing. We sat for a bit in the sunshine. Very high light levels in this area, but everything's been chosen appropriately. And there's a really great reconstruction of a sort of sandstone built column. Some of the blocks are reconstruction, and they're all really nice colours together, and some quite cubist lion replacements for the lions that aren't there anymore. And we've seen some jewellery, and we've seen some swords, and I am now looking at some very nice powder coated mounts. They're rather nice. They're mounting some masks and things, and they just sit back really beautifully, and they support the inside structure of the mask really nicely. Clay mask, I should say. But yeah. Oh, and inside you can see some really nice conservation fill. Yeah, nice. 10 points. So I misremembered. There's actually 2 big glass atrium sections, and we've just walked past the second one through some more jewellery and the Islamic art section where there are 3 exquisite wooden polychrome ceilings, and we were told off for lying down, which is weird because we work in a museum where people are allowed to lie down as much as they like, as long as they're not trip hazards, it's fine. And we've just come to see my favourite statue of Priapus, raised by shepherds who worshipped his virility. Priapus was a rustic god who gave fertility to their pastures and flocks. He protected vineyards and gardens where images of him were placed. And he's headless, unfortunately, and 1 foot is missing. But he's gathered his robes up to gather lots of fruit. And there's not just fruit gathered in his robes. And I just think it's so wonderful. I really wish we could see his face. I imagine his face is really like
Fancy a banana?
Cheeky. I love him. I think he's great. We have had a happy time failing to read some Arabic, and we've just come up the stairs to the top floor. We missed the bit about coins. Sorry, coin lovers. We're not coin lovers. But there was a cool set of scales and some extremely loud doors. I want to get that noise again. See if they're closed loudly too. Oh, they're very sensitive. I'm just going to go through. Solidly 1700s now. I feel that we've missed like several centuries. Where did we just leave? We just left like 13th century, right?
Yeah. We are missing because we did see the hotel camera.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say we've on the reverse side of our map. There's a really great top 10 items to see, which is really cool. In timeline order. Another thing I forgot to mention is that there were some unlabelled human remains, like as in a full body, and it said plenty about the body, but there was no warning and no like interpretation of why he was there and stuff like that. So yeah, lots of feelings about that. But we're in a completely different section now. I think there's some Egyptology. This is a gallery of lots of different types of stuff and images of historic excavation. So we've gone around the origins of different collections and loan objects from different museums as well into the Egyptology section. And it's so big, and we've realised we need to hurry up. We're in the Greeks now. Suddenly Greeks. And sculpture and art, anyone? I mean, the exquisite floors and display cases and super nice. Someone's very specifically damaged the bum of one of the statues, which is a huge shame. Virginia says it looks like somebody's taken a bite out of it, which it does, actually. It really does. Anyway, I was talking about the consistent approach to lighting, actually. It's really nice. It's really nice. Redevelopment goals. I think the lighting levels are a teeny bit low for me, but I also don't like fading, so... I think we might need to speed through the Greeks a little bit, though I want to look at all of these pots. But... we have other exciting things to do today. After we've been to the shop, we're going to go and change for our night out, which we will hear about shortly, after some closing thoughts to this, my favourite Madrid museum. Okay, so first we have to commend the toilets. There are some upstairs toilets, which is rare. Top floor toilets, pristine, let down by a lack of soap, unfortunately. But we've just come downstairs to visit the shop, and we have come to a nice big photograph of the conservation studios. Hi everyone who works there. There's someone in a stripy top, that doesn't narrow it down, and someone with glasses and their hair tied back, doesn't narrow it down, and so on. It's wonderful. Is that a see-through display cabinet of all of your dust masks? And it is, with your gloves. Beautiful. And I use those extraction units too, and my work lamps are much older than yours, but I'm jealous of yours now. Oh, it's beautiful. All of your desks are on wheels. Goals. Very nice. Love a Tyvek covered table. Virginia has walked off now. I think I've gone too far. Hi, shout out to anyone who works in the conservation studios of the Madrid Archaeological Museum. National Archaeological Museum? National. Yeah, love it. Love it. Shop time. Final thoughts of the museum element of our day in Madrid. Generally excellent. It's my favourite museum that we've been to here. I love all of the stuff is great, and all of the displays are great, and I love the lighting levels, and it's just super nice. For me, let down by being told not to lie down to look at a suspended ceiling.
Yeah.
Not because we were told not to lie down, but because we were told not to lie down because we were in a museum and didn't we know that there were ways to behave in museums. I was like, whoa, that's not very accessible. That's no, not up for that. So that was the downer on me. But, you know, individuals are individuals, so what can you do? Yeah. If you are going to be eccentric in a museum that doesn't like people being eccentric, make sure that you have a slightly angry Spanish friend to stick up for you, who can say, I'm sorry, but I also work in front of house, and so on and so on. Virginia, what are your final thoughts? I know you're doing our directions. What final thoughts on the museum?
I'll say it's also one of my favorite museums because it's usually quieter than other museums, and it has a very good quality exhibition with lots of interactive for different disabilities and accessibility. But obviously I didn't like the way they talked to my friend so I just had to stand up for myself and make them understand that behaving like the way to behave in a museum is not to have a stick up. Sure. But I enjoyed it, and the shop is very cute. I didn't get anything, but I enjoyed it very much, like I did last time. Honestly.
So the other bit of the evening that I alluded to whilst we were in the museum, I was so excited that I completely forgot to do any recording, and now it's over. So we're going to the Corral de la Moreria. Can you pronounce it properly, please, Vi?
Corral de la Moreria.
Thank you. Which is a Michelin star restaurant and the flamenco, and I cannot describe it. It was just absolutely unbelievable. It was an explosion. Just amazing. 2 singers, a guitarist and a percussionist, with a female dancer and a male dancer, and it was just, the energy is just, I cannot believe the energy, and I actually just don't have any words, which is really super great for a podcast. But you should come. It's not museums, but it's sure as hell heritage, and it's breathtaking. Okay, unexpected additional content. We decided to have a day trip out to one of the towns quite close to Madrid, so a train ride away. So today we visited Alcalá de Henares. Say it properly.
Alcalá de Henares.
Thank you. And it's historic town centre.
It's a historic town centre where Miguel de Cervantes was living in, and also one of the first places where the oldest universities of Spain were created, and libraries as well, which was my university. It moved to the city centre at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot of really gorgeous old buildings, and the street we just walked down is, full of terraces and places to eat and things to see and stuff. And we just walked past a medical museum in the old hospital, which was closed, sad face. But we are now standing in the queue to see Cervantes' house.
Cervantes, yes.
I am expecting historic house vibes, and it looks like it's completely restored inside, like the full house. So I'm super excited. And then we're going to have lunch. And Virginia's saving the best till last, I think, though we didn't expect to stumble upon this museum, which is super exciting. So, Proper historic house vibes. We walked in and the originally open air courtyard section has been like capped off with a new glass ceiling to protect the building. And I'm just standing in the kitchen, my favourite, and there's a little reconstructed suspended bucket thing with wood placed and the work table and stuff. It's really cool. So we had... Look, there's another stork! Oh my god, look at the size of him! He's so big! He looks like a pterodactyl. Oh my god! So, we're standing outside of a big, like, yellow sandstone university building of the original university. We've just had lunch. It was really nice. I don't really have any other sort of details because we're just wondering about having a nice time. We just had ice cream. The architecture and the history of the place is amazing, but to be honest, the most entertaining thing is the fact that there's gigantic stork nests everywhere. From where I'm standing, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the storks are flying around massively, and they're super cute in the trees and being massive, and I'm just finding it really entertaining. So yeah, I can just see a stork bum at the moment at the top of a very tall building. It's amazing. So I recommend coming to
Alcalá de Henares.
Thank you.
Hello, Alimal. Hello, everyone. This is Liz reporting to you from Amsterdam. In typical Dutch fashion, my road trip is actually more of a bike trip to a museum about 15 minutes from my house that you may be familiar with, the Rijks Museum, which is, I believe, the Dutch National Museum. The majority of the collection focuses on Dutch masters and art of the 17th century, which is my specialty at the moment. So I will be showing you around and giving you an idea of what a visit to the museum is like. All right, well, first things first, the exterior is absolutely beautiful. It does look quite grand. There are gardens on the outside of the building, and the building itself is on Museumplein, which also features the Stedelijk Museum, which is the contemporary art museum, and the Van Gogh Museum as well, where you can find most of Van Gogh's paintings that are in the Netherlands. There are 1 or 2 at the Rijks, but honestly, you're going to the Rijks for the 17th century masters. All right, I'm now inside the museum on the ground floor in the special collections, which is my favorite place to start every single time that I visit the Rijks. It's all of the objects that are in the collection. So the first room is like models of different ships which were contributing both to the Dutch Navy as well as trade. Before the British, the Dutch were really like the kings of the water. And then the next room goes into ceramics, and it does a very good job of showing you what earthenware looked like in Europe at the time and how porcelain from China was such a huge advancement compared to what Europe had been using prior. You know, porcelain looks prettier, for one thing. It's like got this translucency to it that's really beautiful, but it's also stronger than earthenware, and it doesn't keep like odors as much as earthenware or even silver does. So it was really highly sought after. Moving through the rest of the space, you can see how the Dutch learned porcelain. The recipe was found in like 1700s in Germany, and the Dutch started doing their own porcelain instead. And it's very interesting to see the like stylistic change from imported to regionally made. And then there's also some jewelry pieces, watches, silver in general, and then Delftware, which is all of like Dutch tile and the traditional blue Delftware that you would see. And the reason that I like being in the special collection to start my tour is because it's a very good visualization of how the Dutch 17th century, it's often referred to as the Dutch Golden Age, but it is more often referred to now as the Dutch
global age, which is a more accurate representation. And being in the special collection, you can really see that. You can really see how much they were taking from other cultures and incorporating into their own, but also how much they coveted the exotic.
This is important when we're going on to the rest of the museum because we kind of need to know the context of the pieces. Like, what was the environment that these artworks were being made in? What was the social environment? Which brings me to the next area of the museum that we're going to visit. We're going to skip the first floor, which contains all of the furniture collection, as well as some artworks from the 18th and 19th centuries. And we're going to skip right to the second floor, which is where you have all of the artwork from the 17th century. So what was happening at the end of the 16th and beginning of the 17th century in the Netherlands? For many years, the Netherlands had been owned and ruled by Spain, which was Catholic, and there were people in the Netherlands who were becoming Protestant and were interested in seeing the Netherlands become Protestant as well. These religious differences led to the Netherlands sort of being cut in half into North and South, with the South being more Catholic and the North being more Protestant. There were some wars involved in this. I'm not sure on all the details and dates, but what it led to was a shift in art. Catholic countries, the artwork is more religious, venerative, but with Protestants, there's less of a demand for art that is religious in nature. They were moving away from religious pieces. Maybe there's a little bit of allegory in it or a lesson in the painting, but you're not going to see Jesus painted or any stories from the Bible necessarily. Dutch artists start moving more towards everyday scenes, scenes of people going about their regular housework or getting drunk, having fun. Some of the most famous Dutch scenes are those winter landscapes where everybody is out on the ice and there's lots of different narratives happening within the painting. You're also going to get more still lives, and landscapes are extremely Dutch. I took a class actually when I first moved to the Netherlands because I was coming from Italy and so much of what I was used to was Italian art, Renaissance art, and I needed something to be like a bit of a touchstone to help me transition from that into the Dutch 17th century. And I took a class that was about exactly that, about the Dutch interacting with Italian art in the 17th century and the decades following that, and really made clear to me that landscapes were more of a Dutch invention than they were something that Italians were doing. Perhaps there would be landscapes in the background of a painting, but it wasn't the main focal point. I really love the collections on the second floor of the Rijks Museum. I think that it flows well from room to room. They have different themes for each room, easy to read blurbs on the walls that give you like a context for the room, which is really, really nice, especially if you're just ambling around for a day as a tourist. With larger museums like this, I really think that it's important to understand how the pieces relate to each other. And the only way to do that is with information on the walls and really good curation. And I think that some of the small ante-rooms on the second floor of the Rijks do a great job at that. There's one room that is entirely about drinking games. And so you've got different glassware and an explanation of drinking culture in the Netherlands in the 17th century. That pairs really well with an anteroom in the Grand Hall, which is kind of where they have all of the really big masters. That's where you're going to find your Rembrandts and your Vermeers, but also your Jan Steens. Jan Steen was a 17th century Dutch artist who was painting a lot of people just having fun and getting drunk in ordinary, everyday life scenes. And these are some of the most full of life paintings that I see from this time period. It gives you a sense of more everyday life, which is something that I'm drawn towards. But he's also a phenomenal artist with lots of attention to detail, which makes the paintings very fun to look at for a few minutes because you're going to notice something different. It's also important to remember that unlike other time periods, like the Renaissance, when art was really only accessible to the wealthy, and then there was more public art that was available for everyone to view, because there was so much commerce happening in the 17th century, everyone had access to art. There was so much wealth being spread around amongst multiple different social classes that it was very normal to walk into a bar and to have the walls covered with different artists. So So featuring working class people in everyday scenes as the main focal point, as the subject of the piece, is very Dutch. All right, the last stop on our tour today is one of the most famous pieces in the Rijks Museum, The Night Watch by Rembrandt. Now, for anyone who isn't familiar with the piece, you can look it up, but it depicts a group of men who are about to go off to some battle, like it's a rallying sort of just moments before the event. Good lights, darks, highlighting the central figure. It's a well-known piece. But that's actually not why I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it because for the last few years, it's been under conservation. The Night Watch has undergone a few conservation efforts throughout its life. One of the first ones was in the late 1800s when it went through a wax resin lining. And in the years following World War II, I believe, because the painting had been stored for safety during the war, they decided to take away the first wax resin lining and do another one. This second one that they did was not executed well. It was not a very good lining, and in 1974 they ended up doing a third lining treatment following some damage to the painting that was done when a viewer threw acid onto the piece. And since 1974, it has not been touched, but in the last few years, a round of research was done to kind of determine what does the painting need, where can we go, what are our limits, what are the possibilities, followed by the removal of the lining and a new lining treatment. And all of this has been done in the view of the public, which is really a great opportunity for the public to learn about conservation. I'm a really big fan of fishbowls. If you listen to our musical instruments episode, we talk about fishbowls a little bit, which is just when conservators are like on view for the public while they work. And the way that the Night Watch was set up when they did the lining was really just that there were like 3 glass walls surrounding the workspace, and then people could sort of walk around it. But moving on to the next phase of treatment, when they'll be removing the varnish and doing the fills and retouchings, they wanted the conservators to have a little bit more privacy, not have to hear the audience so much because that was a problem. And so they recently just shut down and constructed this fishbowl that takes up the whole room. It's really impressive. I like it a lot. I think looking at it, the first thing that comes to mind is that it really seems like a stage. It seems like a performance. The area where people can view from is lower lighting than the workspace, which I think is smart because obviously a lot of talking and standing and staring can happen in this area, and maybe having that darker setting calms down the audience a little bit more, and they'll speak in whispered tones. I'm not speaking in a whispered tone because I'm no longer standing in front of it, but but I did notice that it was quieter in that room. I'll post photos on our social media of what the new fishbowl looks like, but I'm really excited to be coming back to the Rijks on a regular basis to watch the treatment process as it unfolds. And I will be coming back to the Rijks because I'm actually starting to give tours of the Rijks Museum to tourists. And if anyone is interested in booking a tour, if they're in Amsterdam and seeing the Rijks Museum with me, I have all of this information and more on the tour. So I'll put that information down in the links. Overall thoughts on the Rijks Museum. Compared to other large national museums, I think the Rijks is so doable. Like, if you're on vacation and you want to get a museum in one day, you can see everything in the Rijks in 3 hours. So it's not like the Louvre, it's not like the National Gallery, it's a lot more contained. But honestly, that's great. I really like that. I think because of that, it forces them to really curate what they have and kind of show their best, which is exciting to see. And then as a tourist, that gives you a lot of time to see the city of Amsterdam as well, which I think is honestly one of the biggest draws about visiting Amsterdam.
Hello, listeners. I'm in Sweden. It is a sunny day. I've got crunchy gravel underfoot. It's a beautiful, serene day. I'm next to a lake, and I've just been to an artist's residence. So remember in the historic house episode, I did say I didn't enjoy historic houses unless they were artisty. And I feel like this one very much stands up to that. It was a lovely tour with a knowledgeable guide. You weren't allowed to take photos inside, which I understand. And it's the home of Carl and Karin Larsson. They are famous artists, late 1800s, early 1900s. I cannot remember the exact dates. And they basically influenced all of Swedish design language, and that stuff. In fact, the tour guide said IKEA people come here often to look for space-saving designs and design language and colours, and I love it. It's a very colourful home. It started as a sort of little farmhouse, and then it was expanded into 14 rooms eventually, including giant artist studios. It is a beautiful piece of heritage. It's amazing. Seeing it on a sunny summer day is, of course, also lovely, with sort of minimal other people. But yeah, I enjoyed the UV film on the windows. I didn't necessarily see any other details like that, but the guide was very good with don't touch this, or guiding us, but without being like, no touch. And it was an absolutely lovely visit. Cannot recommend enough if you're ever in Dalarna and Falun in Sweden. It is astonishing. Really good stuff. And if you enjoy art and you want some Parisian vibes via Sweden, this is definitely the place to go. Heartily recommended, guys. I mean, the whole village is so scenic. Apparently about 800 people live in this village. I love everything about this. There are a lot of like personal touches in there, and they keep, fresh flowers. And for UK people, if you've been to Kettle's Yard, you will love this, basically. I'm not sure what else to say. It's gosh darn lovely. Wide gravel paths, green grass, red wooden fences. Yeah, it's just lovely. I'm really glad we came here. And I'm really glad they keep it like this. You should visit. Today I'm visiting the Mining Museum in Falun. It's connected to the Falu copper mines, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So right outside the windows I can see the big pit where one of the mining areas were concentrated. I have just read up on when it was used, but I've already forgotten. I went to fetch the recorder to get some thoughts while I'm here. So the museum, it's a beautiful sunny day, by the way. Unbelievable scenes that I'm inside, but still. The museum itself is in a fancy building. It's a replica of the original head office. Well, not super original, because this mine has been used thousands of years. But one of the head offices. So it's quite a fancy, big building. It seems the museum's on the ground floor only, and then maybe other exhibition things upstairs that aren't currently open, because we're here in May, which isn't like major tourist season for them. Anyway, so the museum bit sort of starts in a really dark, undergroundy, cavern-esque hall. But it really sets the scene with sort of nature as well. There are big projections on the walls of what this place would have looked like before human intervention. So woodland and bogs and stuff like that. It wasn't always post-industrial. And I'm really enjoying the vibe. It sets the scene, like, how was it discovered? How did people know to dig here? What was it like before? And then in this sort of cavernous dark room, we're talking a lot about what mining is and how it's done. And to be honest, I was a bit bored by that. That sounds harsh. And I was like, oh, it's going to be a really industrial museum, is it? I mean, that's not that surprising. But then we walk through and you're sort of in more of a cabin area, and we're talking about the people in charge, the people who worked here. And then we go down this lovely sun-drenched corridor, and I absolutely love it. It's a timeline. It's such a good use of a corridor, guys. It's sort of got a collage feel to the walls where things are sort of pasted on in like three-dimensional foam board forms. Sort of a mix of modern illustrations and old illustrations and drawings from documents and photos. And it's just really engaging and a great use of space. Because usually, a long corridor between buildings or outbuildings, just not that interesting. But this was such a nice way of doing it. And it has a very fun feel, like anyone of any age can enjoy it. And then I'm going to go through to the next bit of the exhibition area. And then we're through to this much bigger exhibition area. It's quite modern. It uses a lot of illustrations and does clever things with interactives. It's got a game where you can pretend to do mining. Actually quite enjoyed it. Some great illustrations of, some great uses of maps and making them more three-dimensional. I feel like this whole place makes good use out of interesting colours and cutouts. So it's not traditional display cases, it's cutouts and walls and interesting shapes, and then it sort of reveals an object behind glass. And everything's bilingual, Swedish and English. Yeah, it's just got really interesting things. It's got some gruesome bits as well. I'm looking at a leg being amputated as an interactive. Love it. There's a lot of good stuff. And you can go and pretend mine carts, which was terrifying. I don't recommend it at all. But yeah, it does a lot of interesting things with shapes and cutouts and colour contrasts. I've got to be in my bonnet about some of the colours that they've chosen for the text panels, because sometimes they are not good contrast, and I'm like, this does not pass an accessibility check. But most of them are really, really good. Yeah, I'm just really enjoying what they've done. It's something that could potentially be quite boring. No offense. They've made really fun and engaging by just good design and good interpretation, good length of the text panels, great use of photos, but not in a traditional here's a photo on a wall sort of thing. They've done fun pops of colours, or colorized some of them, or themed them in some way, and done big cutouts and blown them up, and it's really good. I'm walking around in a little space full of chemistry glassware, because obviously with mining and stuff there's an element of chemistry and old lab stuff, which I obviously love. Something I'm really enjoying, by the way, this is a small and silly thing, isn't it, but there are a lot of benches everywhere, which I love, because everyone needs to sit down. And what I really enjoy is that the benches, they're wire cage, and it's full of aggregate from the mine. That's just free stuff lying around, and it's local to the area. It's great. And then it's got a big slab of wood on top, so it's nice to sit on. But that's genius. That is incorporating your local stuff right there. I love it. It's perfect. It makes me incredibly happy. There's a lot of use of orange, because it's a copper mine, and also it's got iron ore and health and safety stuff, so there's a lot of orange going on, but I'm here for it. I'm really enjoying it. This has been a really lovely little wander about. After this we'll probably wander around the local area, where there are a load of original buildings, sometimes moved because the pit is ever expanding, or used to be anyway. At least partially because I'm sitting on one of those benches now. At least partially because of things caving in every now and again and stuff like that. I'm going to wander around the local area, look at some of the old buildings that they've preserved, probably have some food. We're staying in the local area as well at a B&B that's just on site. It's actually one of the scientists' home. Yeah, one of the famous people who really did groundbreaking stuff in terms of winches and stuff like that for the technology of the mine at the time. Yeah, it's his home. You wouldn't be able to tell now, it's just sort of a gutted, and it's a B&B now, but it is that building that's being reused as that. That's quite cool. It's named after him as well. Christopher Polhem. It's really lovely to be able to stay at a World Heritage Site. I don't know that I've done that before. It's really cool. But yeah, this is a lovely little museum. I wish I could say more conservation-y stuff about stuff, but not really thought about it a lot. The light level's the same. I haven't seen any loggers, but then I haven't looked that closely. I think most things are sealed in low microclimate anyway. Haven't seen any pest monitoring, aside from a mouse trap I saw in the shop. Yeah, I just don't have very many conservation things to say about this, to be honest. This is just a lovely visitor experience. Really, really nice. And the people who work here are also lovely. Today, dear listener, I am visiting Dalarnas Museum, which is the Dalecarlian, I guess, regional museum in Sweden. So it represents the crafts and history of the region. And it's quite iconic stuff, really. It's the stuff that most people associate with Sweden. It tends to come from this area. Sort of in terms of the really iconic design patterns and colour usage. So it's had quite an impact on, I guess, Sweden as a sort of export or a known thing in the world. It's really interesting wandering around, seeing some of the local history. Right now I'm walking through a reconstructed cottage landscape where you can peer into people's windows. I do like those. But it's not like a stuffy old museum. It's actually airy and light, very modern. And of course, appropriate light levels where necessary. But every now and again now I'm emerging onto like a bright, beautiful gallery. It has massive windows onto the oldest square in the town, and loads of old buildings. Outside is beautiful. It's a sunny day. It is hot outside. I'm glad I'm inside. And right now I'm in a sort of local history gallery type thing, but things here tend to be things that don't mind getting some sun on them. So by that I mean there are like reproduction photos, things that are metal, things that are stone, bits of archaeology. Good choices. And down below, on the sort of mezzanine below, there's a beautiful display of Dalahästar, which is the sort of iconic Swedish horse. It's a wooden horse painted in a really distinctive manner, and this whole exhibition area is dedicated to them, their design, their development, and the ways they've mostly stayed the same, but also the ways people have tried to reinvent them over the years and stuff like that. I'm really enjoying this art that's next to me. So they're wooden horses, right? And an artist called Peter Johansson, by that label, basically took a saw to them and sliced them up and then packaged them like they were meat in a meat counter, and put them on display with meat. And they're there in a drawer, just the like sliced up Dalahästar in meat packaging. I'm so here for it. I love that sort of art. That's great. But yeah, this is a really lovely little museum. I'm really enjoying it. It's very quiet today. It's not tourist season yet, so it's quiet. There might be about 2 other people in the museum other than me, the staff, and my mother-in-law. But it's just right. It's perfect for wandering around and not annoying anyone by doing this little audio tour. But yeah, in terms of road trip, this was easy to find, parking nearby. It's free entry because it's a local regional museum. They do tend to do that. Yeah, super duper. I'm really enjoying the costume gallery. Is gorgeous. I immediately sent Kloe a message saying, "Oh my God, I wish you were here," because gorgeous costume. It's great folk costume around here. And there's some Sami stuff, and I'm just really here for it. Everything is gorgeous and well looked after. And aside from that, I was also really, really enthralled by the painting gallery. And I don't mean paintings in frames on walls. I mean like local painted surfaces sort of thing. And just showing off the local style and the types of materials they used and the inspiration, and explaining the iconography. And I never knew, there was so much depth to it. I'm really enjoying this place. Yeah, it's really nice, and it feels really Scandinavian because, I mean, I'm not a fan of the white cube, right? I'm pretty sure I've said that before. I'm not a fan of the white cube. But the walls are sort of whitewashed, and then there's like wooden floors that are a light colour. Everything feels very Scandinavian, and then there's just gorgeous interpretation all around me. I'm really liking it. Anyway, that was probably not the most thrilling entry in this podcast today, but this is part of my little road trip. Deal with it. Yeah, gorgeous. I'm enjoying this. Thanks for listening. Diane, I am at the Museum of Rijks in Stockholm in Sweden, and it is fascinating. Basically, the museum has very few objects, but they've made great use of documentation for this. They've got gorgeous acrylic printed news articles, some of it blurred out because you might only be interested in the headline, making great use of audio of things, bubbling of water and other audio cues that are really, really cool. They're making great use of lighting and making it atmospheric. They've done brilliant things with video and also with 3D scanned objects that you can sort of see on a reflected surface. It's really, really cool. Well worth seeing. It's very multimedia focused, sure, but if documentation is all you have and you don't have very many objects, it's a genius move. I'm really enjoying it. Diane, I am so excited. For the first time ever, I have seen someone make an interactive out of roller racking. It wasn't real roller racking. It was like a simulated archival space where you had a lot of like very clever things with... Oh, hello.
Kära besökare, klockan är nu 2 och det kommer börja en guidad visning på svenska med start i entrén. Så varmt välkomna att delta på den guidade visningen med start nu i entrén.
They did a lot of clever things, like they did sort of NFC technology, which is where you can like slot in something that has a hidden chip in it, and it starts interacting. They did that with like archival records, so that slotting in a card would basically start an interactive, like a video or something about the information on the card. It was very clever. Anyway, the most important thing is that they had roller racking. It was like small roller racking, like child size, and it had like fake boxes on them and stuff that you couldn't pull out. But anyway, so you could like play with the roller racking. It was such a cute idea, guys. I can't believe it. Also, I've taken like 1 million doll museum snaps in here of like me pointing at loggers and Pro Sword cassettes and cases. I'm having the best time in this place. I have to say, I had medium expectations, but this is a brilliant museum. I'm really, really loving this. If you're into like marine archaeology, this is the place for you.
Hey guys, have I got an adventure for you? So you probably think, okay, the archaeology buff in the podcast will probably take us to an archaeological site. And it's true that there are plenty in Cyprus, and I've been to basically all of them a bunch of times. And so you'd probably think, for those who know Cyprus, that I'd go to Paphos, where all the amazing archaeological sites are. And if you don't know about it, come to Cyprus, go to Paphos. There's a beautiful archaeological park with amazing Roman and Hellenistic mosaics. And there's something called the Tomb of the Kings, which you really need to explore. However, I decided to do something completely crazy with you guys. Something that I would have never done in other circumstances, but I thought I need to go somewhere crazy. So, instead, I'm heading to Ayia Napa, so the complete opposite side of the island, and I'm going to an underwater museum. Why is this crazy for me? Well, because I have ichthyophobia, so I am afraid of any living thing inside the water. So this is really outside my comfort zone, but I thought to myself, I need to face my fear, and I really want to see what an underwater museum looks like. So there you go. This is where I'm heading right now with my lovely little hubby. So the underwater museum we're going to is called Musan, which stands for Museum of Underwater Sculptures in Ayia Napa. It is described as an extraordinary blend of art and nature. It has 93 sculptures, which were all created by artist Jason Taylor. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It opened in 2021, and it is situated about 200 meters from the shore. The sculptures are sitting directly onto the seabed, and that is about 8 to 10 meters deep. So a little bit about the artist. Jason Taylor is an award-winning sculptor, environmentalist, and underwater photographer. And for the past 17 years, he has been submerging over 1,200 artworks, apparently, worldwide. And his pieces address pressing themes such as climate change, environmental activism, and nature's power to regenerate. Taylor first gained international fame in 2006 with the creation of the world's first underwater sculpture park, which was made off the coast of Grenada in the West Indies. So, what are the themes that we are going to encounter today at Musen? According to the museum website, Musen aims to enhance Ayia Napa's reputation as a dynamic, modern, cultural resort, which is focused on marine conservation and ecotourism. The sculptures celebrate the region's rich cultural and natural heritage, showcasing the stunning underwater beauty while giving marine life a sanctuary to thrive in. In 2021, Musen was designated as one of the 6 marine protected areas with artificial reefs, aiming to boost the fish stock and safeguard the marine environment in Ayia Napa. I wasn't able to find much information on the materials used, unfortunately. All I know is that the sculptures are made from inert, pH-neutral materials, such as concrete, that attract marine life and are strategically placed at different depths to enrich the area's biodiversity over time. Some pieces, like the massive trees, weigh up to 13 tons and reach from the seabed to the surface. There are also some floating elements that move with the currents. The artist explains, the floating trees move quite a lot in the current. They go very, very close to the surface. It's meant to convey that we need to look after these protected areas massively, and we need to talk about policing them in much, much tighter ways. So, Musen is a collaborative effort between the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research, the Ayia Napa municipality, and the Ministry of Tourism here in Cyprus. And the result is an ever-changing seascape rather than a finished piece. Apparently, among the installation, I will find sculptures depicting children at play, which will remind us of our need for the natural world as a place to explore, discover, and spark our imaginations. Well, that sounds interesting. Hey, so we are now on the road towards Ayia Napa. It is 6:30 in the morning. We are hyped, we are energized, good breakfast, and we'll be there in about 1 hour. There are 3 options to visit the museum. Firstly, there's a scuba diving, which I am absolutely not doing. There's also snorkeling, so staying at the surface and looking at it from above. And there is also free diving, which is what we decided to do. So we'll be going from 1 to 3 meters deep. So, it's nothing too dangerous, but it's definitely a first for me. And just to be safe and for me not to panic, we decided to go with a diving school. So we'll have an instructor that will basically give us a little short course on how to free dive and how to breathe. The instructor will be accompanying us along the way. We will be swimming about 150 meters in before we arrive at the location of the museum. My sweet hubby had to wake up at 5 a.m. to drive us. Poor guy. But I think he'll enjoy himself once he's inside the water. I'd like to point out that this is our first swim of the season. We've arrived. It's a beautiful day. It's 7:30 in the morning. There's nobody around, which is fantastic. The museum seems to be very well marked. There is basically a path in the sand that tells you it's straight ahead, and then you follow the buoys. And eventually, about 200 meters in, there are little wooden planks, I guess, for people to stand on. If you don't feel comfortable swimming for 200 meters, there's the option to take a little boat to get out there, but we are going to swim. Our diving instructor, Mariska, is a really lovely lady. She advised us on what to wear so that her videos, she's going to take videos of us diving, will look best. So she advised us to wear red, for example, and she brought me some nice golden flippers, which would go well with my swimsuit. My husband will be wearing a weight belt so that he can go down deeper than I can. I decided not to for health reasons, so I'll probably stay at about 1 meter depth. I won't be able to go much further. But it will be nice to see them from above and to learn how to breathe and equalize my ears. The water is crystal clear and there are no waves, so I think that I can do it. I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm trying not to panic. Hey guys, we just came out of the water and I want to present you to our diving instructor. Hi Mariska.
Hi, so we did free diving now in Mossad, unique underwater museum, which is the real treasure in Cyprus. And we were free diving with gorgeous guys, with Phedra and Aaron. And we went to see a beautiful museum, sculptures, the calamari.
So many calamari actually, and also we saw a lionfish. Is that what it's called?
Lionfish, yes, it's a beautiful fish that we don't touch. And of course, in the museum, it's possible to see the turtle and sometimes the seals because it attracts marine life, and also it's an artistic monument which was created 3 years ago in Cyprus, and marine life comes to the museum, and it's a real treasure for us, and it's really amazing that we can swim, become part of the museum. We also can be like a fish and swim there in this universe.
It's true, I felt like a one in the water. I felt like a fish myself. I faced my fear, guys.
So we were wearing long fins and mask and snorkel, and we were swimming around, watching the museum and making some small dives, like 1 meter.
Yeah, so I went 1 meter, Aaron went, what, 2-3 meters?
Sometimes 2 meters, yes.
Yeah, 2 meters. And yeah, that was the first time I did that. I had to equalize my ears. What a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Isn't she a hoot? Guys, this museum is incredible. Somehow I managed to remain calm through the entire thing. I don't know what happened. I usually start screaming after a while, especially if I see things like calamari or, yeah, a lionfish. If I were to just see a lionfish on my own in the middle of the sea, I would probably have panicked. But no, I was very serene and just floating about and looking at the wildlife around the statues. I guess I was just in my element. Why on earth would I ever panic in a museum, right? Although, I do have to say, the first thing you see is a bunch of ancient-looking columns, although they're made out of concrete and pretty modern. And then, as you're advancing, you haven't seen anything else at that point, you just see shadows of men standing. So I won't lie, at that point, for about a split second, I thought to myself, what the heck am I doing? But of course, those were some concrete statues, not real humans, drowning in the sea. And their heads were not heads. Their heads instead had branches of trees. Then, continuing forward, there were a bunch of children who were holding cameras, which I personally interpreted as a commentary on modernity and how media has taken over this world. But as I've said before, the sculpture mentioned that these were children at play, that would remind us of the natural world as a place to explore, discover, and spark our imaginations. My favorite part was the women that were laying on the seabed in kind of like a rocky environment. They reminded me of the Maltese sleeping lady. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those statues from Maltese megalithic temples. But yeah, so these ladies were laying on their side, and from them were growing a bunch of branches and flowers. So you had some beautiful, delicate leaves and petals, which was completely different from the men's heads that had like rough, thick branches. The branches and leaves that came out of the women laying were much more delicate and much more, I'd say, less brutalist and more pleasing to the eye. The next set of statues were a bunch of balloons. So you had rods hanging from the seabed, and then the balloons themselves were really close to the surface. I feel like my husband would have been able to touch them had he gone just a couple of centimeters further down. And he basically told me he made this a goal of his. So he's gonna practice and then hopefully come back to the museum and touch the balloons. And then finally, in the deepest waters, in the darkest waters, there's a post-apocalyptic looking forest. The trees remind me of the winter season where the chestnut trees are leafless, and as opposed to the women with the delicate flowers and beautiful flat leaves, the trunk here was super thick and rough, and the branches were very spiky, going into every direction. So yeah, it reminded me of the chestnut tree in the winter. And that is when we saw a group of scuba divers. They were walking on the seabed, so they were 10 meters under us, all dressed in black, you know, with all the tanks and stuff. And it was kind of scary, but quite fun to see them walk around the trees in the forest and touch the statues. I got a little jealous because I wanted to touch the statues, but at the same time, I don't think I'd ever go scuba diving in my life. I don't think I would ever pass the certificate. I mean, it is in days like these that I think to myself, it would have been nice to study underwater archaeology. You know, I would have loved to be able to see shipwrecks and ports that are underwater, parts of cities that are underwater, but I know that I would have never been able to do so. I'd probably faint in the middle of the sea before I even get to a shipwreck. So what was interesting to me is that the artist's intent is to let marine life thrive in this artificial reef that he created. But the artificial reef is made out of statues that represent vegetation from Earth, not from the sea. So you have algae and all kinds of other vegetation from the sea growing on imagery of earthen trees and flowers. In terms of heritage conservation and preservation, well, the artist's original intent is for the site to be an ever-changing seascape rather than a finished piece. So we have to accept that over the years, more and more wildlife will be attaching itself to the statues. More and more wildlife, such as the calamari that we saw, will be eating off of the surface of the statues. And therefore, there will be decay as the years go by. In fact, I myself, in 2024, so that is 3 years after the museum first opened, I saw a bunch of branches from the trees that were broken, that had fallen off, that were cracked. But of course, we just have to let nature take its course. The diving instructor told me that this happened due to currents and strong waves that come in. So you have to think that the statues that are close to the surface, especially those that are kind of floating around, might get damaged over time. So it would be interesting to see in a couple of years the ethical debate that might happen if the statues are heavily broken and heavily decayed. I would presume that maybe the Ministry of Culture would take a stance towards the conservation of the site and recovering its initial aesthetic value, whereas organizations such as the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research might be quite opposed to that because it might affect the built-up of wildlife that has accumulated over time. I wonder if the artist will want the site to be restored, or if he'll just keep his original idea and let it become what it naturally will become. Of course, that then might not be as pleasing to the eye to tourists, although maybe those interested in ecotourism will find that to be more interesting. I guess we'll have to see.
Greetings, C-Word listeners. My name is Cass Fino-Radin, and you may remember me from podcasts such as The C-Word, Season 13, Episode 7, or Art and Obsolescence podcast. Well, a few weeks ago, I was in Salt Lake City for the annual meeting for AIC, the American Institute for Conservation, and while I was there, I took a moment to sit down with a few plucky emerging conservation professionals to hear all about how they came to the field, what they're getting up to, and where they would like to take their career. I thought, who better to share this little slice of AIC with than the lovely listeners of the C-Word podcast? So, with that, enough yapping from me, let's journey back in time a few weeks ago to AIC. What is your name? Where are you based? And what is your specialization?
My name is Eva Rando. I am in San Francisco for the next week. I've been there since September, though, and then I'll be off to Cody, Wyoming. I'm pre-programmed, but I would like to specialize in books and paper, but I'd also like to learn more about photos and paintings.
Fantastic. And you kind of answered this already, but how many years have you been in the field? Like, where are you in terms of your professional journey?
I finished my undergrad a year ago, so I've been officially pre-programmed for a year now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so what inspired you to pursue a career in conservation?
I was in high school when I first heard about it, and I had just taken AP chemistry and realized that chemistry really isn't that scary, but I also really loved art, and I was like, how can I put these together? And then I heard about conservation, and I was like, oh, it's perfect, I'll do that. So then I structured my whole college education around that and have been pursuing it since then.
What has been the most valuable lesson you've learned so far in your conservation journey?
I think learning that there are many ways to treat something. Lots of methods will work. There's not one right answer. But then again, sometimes the most effective thing is to do nothing at all, to avoid just deteriorating something unnecessarily by a treatment that just isn't really necessary.
And fun question, what is your favorite tool in your practice?
I love my micro spatulas.
Well, last question. What would be your dream conservation project?
I would love to work on a medieval manuscript, like a big, fat book made of skins and full of marginalia. Those are so much fun.
Well, Eva, thank you so much for chatting. It was so nice to meet you, and have a wonderful AIC.
Thank you. You too.
What is your name? Where are you based? And what is your specialization?
My name is Elizaveta Yuzhakova. I'm based in New York, and I'm specializing in time-based media conservation and digital preservation. But to be honest, I don't have training in conservation. I have a rich background in exhibition production, and I have a PhD in art history, and I'm a self-taught digital archivist, so that's probably what makes me like a project manager with diverse specialties.
Well, hey, fist bump, because Club TBM, and also I do not have formal conservation training, so legitimate.
Good.
So where are you in your professional? How many years have you been in the field?
My journey started when I was curating the archive of the Ural Industrial Biennial of Contemporary Art back in Russia, and that's how I got interested in digital preservation and in general ethical questions of conservation work, preservation work, and how we as producers can deal with some of the questions that come up without actually have this training. And then I was lucky to get a fellowship in time-based media conservation at the Guggenheim Museum, and I spent there 2 very fruitful years, and here I am now.
What inspired you to pursue a career in conservation?
As I said, since I was working in a nonprofit, and it wasn't a museum, it didn't have a collection, but there was art left after a production period, and part of our archive were not only digital documentations of our exhibitions and events and so on, but also like traces of artistic production. So I thought, how do we deal with that? We need an insight from a discipline like conservation.
What has been the most valuable lesson that you've learned so far in your conservation journey?
The most valuable lesson for a project manager who likes to get things done is that conservation is a process. It doesn't finish with an exhibition being installed. It's just the beginning of your interaction with art and with the artist and among ourselves as well.
What is your favorite tool in your practice?
That is a tough one because there are so many tools, but I can say that currently I'm doing a project that's heavily based on artist interviews, and I'm looking at this oral history tool in more detail, and it opened so much for me, not only as a tool you can use, but also as a tool that brings something about yourself, changes something in yourself.
Last question. What would your dream conservation project be?
It's hard to think of because while I was at the Guggenheim, I had been involved in several projects that are dream projects, like Jenny Holzer's LED sign or Sarah Z's Timekeeper. And I couldn't even dream of being involved in this kind of work. So right now, I have a friend who has several net art projects, and they got obsolete because of the flash technology involved. And my dream right now is to help these artists to bring them back to life. So,
well, Elisabetta, it was so wonderful to meet you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your AIC.
Thank you so much, Cass. Nice to meet you.
What is your name? Where are you based? And what is your specialization?
My name is Elise Brodgum, and I am based at the moment in Denver, but I'm kind of all over, as a lot of people who are coming out of school are. And my specialization is time-based media and contemporary art.
Heck yeah, TBM.
Yeah.
Club TBM, fist bump. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Elise, you alluded to this a little bit already, but where are you in your professional journey? How many years have you been in the field?
I've been in the field for several years, but I'm on the path of right now finally graduating from a conservation program in Buffalo. I'll be graduating in September.
What inspired you to pursue a career in conservation?
It's actually really kind of interesting that it kind of fell into it in a way that at first I said I wanted to be a curator, and I told my mom that. And then she goes, oh, one of my work friends has a friend that's a curator. Except it wasn't. It was a conservator. So I got a backstage tour, a lab tour of the Getty Painting Labs because of that very early. And it was really, really great. I just found myself really falling in love with art in that way of being able to be close to it, being kind of behind the scenes, enjoying the art and being in a kind of quiet, safe aspect of it. That's what really got me started.
Have you thanked your mom for not understanding what a curator is?
Yes, I have.
So what has been the most valuable lesson you've learned so far in your journey?
I think that the most valuable lesson is that perfection is impossible.
What is your favorite tool in your practice?
My favorite tool in my practice is probably my other conservators around me. I'm serious, especially with TBM. Everyone's very open. It's very kind of open source idea, so everyone's willing to share everything. So that's really my favorite tool when it comes to TBM.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Final question. Mm-hmm. What would your dream conservation project be?
I think that my dream project was when I was younger, like something that was saving the world, saving some collection that was in dire need, something like somewhere in Ukraine or like Palestine or something like that. But I think that I've kind of narrowed that huge ass vision into something that's more public art-wise. I feel like I have a really big want to make an impact in a wider spectrum when it comes to either humanitarian or public art or things like that, things that a lot of people see, a lot of people like and treasure.
I love that answer. Well, Elise, I would say nice to meet you, but we know each other.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Good to see you
and
too,
I hope
Cass.
you have a wonderful AIC.
You too.
Ta-ta.
Bye-bye.
What is your name? Where are you based? And what is your specialization?
My name is Ashley Stanford. I am currently based in New York City, and my specialty is in photographic materials.
What inspired you to pursue a career in conservation?
I had studied art history in undergrad, and it took me a long time to try to figure out what I wanted to do with art history, and just kind of exploring different career options, and found art conservation. And then also been inspired a lot through growing up in Houston, Texas, and having been exposed to a lot of natural disasters being there. And one of the things that's kind of I've been inspired by in my conservation journey is, working with disaster response projects and trying to make that a part of my practice as well.
So how many years have you been in the field? Like, where are you in terms of your professional journey and development?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm currently in my third year at the Winchester University of Delaware program in art conservation. And so still a graduate student. And then before starting graduate school, I had about 5 years of pre-program experience.
What do you think has been the most valuable lesson you've learned so far in your conservation journey?
I think one is definitely it's okay to make mistakes and, admit when you need help. It can be hard to do, especially as perfectionists or people who are, it's a constant learning environment, just to be open to making mistakes and learning from them.
And what is your favorite tool in your practice?
I do love just a good micro spatula.
What would your dream conservation project be?
I think my dream conservation project would be continuing to work with materials that I haven't worked with yet. Maybe photographs more on glass or plastics, or just try new things that I haven't tried yet.
Fantastic. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for chatting. It was great to meet you, and I hope you have a wonderful AIC. Oh, they're not going to hear you.
Oh, thank you. You as well.
Thanks for listening. We're the C Word, and today you've been listening to Kloe and Jenny, and also a bit of Cass, a bit of Phedra, and a bit of Liz. Huge thank you to Solange, Liz, and Phedra for joining us this season. It's been a really great time making content with you guys. Join us in the autumn for season 15 and loads of great new episodes. While you're waiting for that, you can always check out our website at thecword.show, email us at thecwordpodcast@gmail.com, or check out our social media presence. Because we don't get paid doing any of this, we would really appreciate your support on Patreon. Check us out at patreon.com/thecword. The intro and outro music is Spring by Didi Music, used under Creative Commons Attribution License. As always, this has been a Wooden Dice production.